one of the main focuses of our show, the podcast that I do with my partner Alexi, is really focused on what's called the troubled teen industry. Therapeutic boarding schools, wilderness camps, conversion therapy stuff for teens. And we had been making videos and interviews and advocating for this stuff for years, really for the last 3 years, because he's a survivor of one of these facilities as a teenager. He was sent away to these boarding schools.
We were talking about Paris Hilton the other day.
Exactly.
Yesterday with my friend about, she's taken a stand for Britney Spears and all that, and what happened to her. And
yeah, so that kind of ties in a little bit. What it is that, like, for instance, Britney Spears is in a situation. She's under conservatorship. It's not the same thing, certainly, as going to a therapeutic boarding school as a teenager. It's much different, but there is still this oppression that's taking place. So, granted. In my case, my friend went to a therapeutic boarding school. I did not. My experience was as a young man getting involved in Scientology. I got tricked into that.
Oh wow!
Right, and there's a whole video series on our YouTube channel about my experience. Alexi interviewed me so I could tell my survivor story regarding Scientology. But here's the problem: just like Britney didn't go to boarding school, and Paris is a free adult, not under anyone's supervision. They can relate in some ways, but it's different. I can relate to. No, it's okay. I can relate to survivors of boarding schools because of the oppression they were put under. But that wasn't my case. I had a different set of circumstances. So I was getting some stuff wrong regarding their experiences and my point of view of it, because I've never been there. It's kind of like an alcoholic, for instance, wanting to quit drinking, not knowing how, going to a therapist who has no experience personally in that kind of thing, and they may be giving good advice, but the relationship isn't there. There's not that common ground of understanding because you've both been through similar things. And that's why, as far as the troubled teen stuff that I've been doing, interviews, that kind of thing, I'm stepping back from that.
Away from that?
Yeah. Because, like I said, the podcast that we recorded yesterday, when I put that up, I was immediately told that what I was saying was wrong, and that kind of leads into this whole idea of what we're talking about. We are recording now.
Oh, cool.
That leads into this idea of narcissism. So, for instance, if I personally had that. I don't really even know what to call it necessarily, but if I was a narcissist, I certainly would not have made these choices to change my point of view and behavior and the things that I'm presenting to the world on the internet, right? I would have been very firm, I imagine, in stating that everybody else was wrong, and of course I'm right, because why wouldn't I be right? This is my point of view. It's completely valid. And everyone else is wrong. Only because I said so. Right. That's kind of the framework for my understanding of it's basically what a narcissist is. It's someone who only recognizes their own point of view and is willing to subjugate other people to that point of view, even to their own detriment. Right? Like, nothing matters except my truth because I said so. So that's my understanding of kind of what that kind of person looks like. But we're here today talking about this stuff to get, your point of view and to let people know, what is a narcissist? What do we do about these people? How do we handle it? Are you in a relationship with a narcissist? Like, what's going on? So feel free to talk about narcissism and what that is.
Well, this is just my views. My point of view on it. Narcissism is, it's from the Greek myth of the guy that falls in love with himself in the reflection of the water. It is a archetype of a person that is in love with themselves. Vanity, I, me, mine. Everything is about that person. What's the word? Not selfish, but self-centered.
Sure, self-seeking, self-centered, only caring about me.
Only caring about themselves.
Sure.
Yeah, so now we've got that. But what's going on in the psychology community and on Facebook I'm seeing is they're calling people the narcissist. And really, in my experience, narcissist is not a person, and it's not. It's a behavior. We live in a society where we have been taught to look outside of ourselves for love and acceptance and approval when that is wrong. That is at the base of the world's problems, actually. No one can tell you what you're worthy of or deserving of, period, for any given reason. And so narcissism and the toxic aspect of it, of the selfishness and all of that, and the vanity, is very much, our society is very steeped in it. It's very steeped in looking out for yourself. The capitalism promotes it. Every man for himself mentality, competition. I don't know if you've seen my podcast, but we're now really getting down to the nitty-gritty of insecurities and where they come from. And that's how people are robbed of themselves, literally. You're told what to be by your parents. You're even kind of, treated a bit like they're a piece of property as a child.
Sure.
And children are not allowed to have emotions.
That ties directly into kind of that other project with the troubled teens. They're treated as objects. They're not even treated as full human beings, right? So, kind of stuff is fostered at a pretty early age when youngsters are treated that way. I mean, it's gonna come out. It's gonna happen.
Outside and play. Don't cry. We'll give you a reason to cry. Anytime you display an emotion, you're told that you're acting out and all these things, and that's just nothing could be further from the truth. Children are allowed to have boundaries. They're allowed to have a voice, but we're taught we're not to. So then you got that going on with the parents. Then you go to school, and you're brought into this whole other thing, like physical fitness, for example, where they pull out the measuring stick and measure you got everyone against each other, which is ridiculous.
Right, I remember that. Right, it was the presidential fitness competitions. Right, remember those? Physical
fitness.
Remember those when the whole school, and I think it was in 6th grade, everyone for what it felt like weeks. Was it a week or two? I don't remember exactly, but it felt like it went on forever. Everyone's like running around, doing pull-ups, jumping, and it's all being very carefully measured and then sent to somebody who then sends back little awards about how great you are. That's wild.
And if you're like me, we grew up in poverty, and that was extremely damaging to your self-esteem and self-worth, and being picked on for those things and everything. So you're nervous all the time. I was nervous.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was deemed a klutz.
We have some similar backgrounds with that.
Yeah.
I grew up. I guess I would consider it to be the poorest street in the city of Orange. No joke.
Yep.
I lived directly across the street from St. Joseph's Hospital. More to the point, I lived directly across the street from the parking structure. It was
on La Vida.
On a street called Columbia. It was one street over, off of Main. The sign is still there, but it's no longer a street because the hospital bought the block and tore down all the houses because they could. They needed more parking space. But that's a different story. That's really interesting. Growing up poor in a pretty wealthy environment. But yes, to your point, it did affect me greatly. And
wonderful.
I was picked on a lot, so my solution for that was to kind of dive into being as weird as possible, and really, and it was negative for sure. No one wants to be singled out and picked on, but what it did for me in a positive way was spur some creative output, I think, because it made me withdraw from most of that group, and I found myself playing along a lot of times with those groups, not really relating but pretending to, and that was always very uncomfortable. Because there was a lot of narcissism in those groups as teens, as kids, these entitled kids who really didn't have much to worry about as far as where their next meal is coming from, for instance.
Security.
Right.
Yeah, stability.
So yeah, I mean, it starts at a pretty young age, especially when you get mixed economic groups all together. It's very striking how that plays out.
And that's because we have this thing called the class system. That's a lie, for one thing. And they try to say, they use the class system when they talk about minorities. Minorities really going to speak about another human being from a language of minority?
Yeah, that's a really shitty way to describe somebody. It really is, and it's it's so outdated and unnecessary to refer to other people of different culture, because that's what it comes down to, right? Different cultures, because as we know,
not only that, but to say minority means there aren't as many of you, and you're not popular. It's just the insinuation of that word.
Right. So we can flip it, right? We can flip that because whether people realize it or not, they're talking about smaller cultures of people, but the people who embody those cultures are biologically, physically, emotionally, intellectually identical to you. Like you could switch these bodies back and forth through time, and culturally nothing would change. You know what I mean? Like you could import bodies into a culture and the culture would remain. The thing that would be different would be there would be different looking people within that culture. But you know what? That already exists. When I went to Mexico as a teenager, for instance, I spent weeks traveling down through Mexico with a friend on their extended family vacation that I was invited to go along with. right? It was amazing. This was back in.
Wow, that's great. I've never been there.
This was back in the mid. This was back in the mid '80s. You know,
the poverty would break my heart. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, here's the truth of it. Well, at least what I saw back in the mid '80s as a teenager, traveling from city to city, family to family, visiting their friends and family, all the way down through Mexico, all the way down to south of Mazatlan. So it was a ways. What I found, to my surprise, because I had no idea, but what I found was that particular Mexican cultures in these cities, they were different too. But the defining characteristic for me was, other than language difference and in subtle ways in which people lived, was it was just like small town America. Like it was pretty interesting, the idea that it's so much, it's alien or foreign or unusual. It's just not the case.
Exactly.
And so race is a myth. It's a myth, and it doesn't exist only in the sense of cultural differences. So there are no minorities. There are no minorities. There are only people. You can call a group of people that live in a particular way, perhaps in a certain part of the world, a minority culture, perhaps, because maybe a larger group of people in another part of the world live in a different way, perhaps. But those two differences should be celebrated. There is no such thing as cultural appropriation, in a sense, if you're doing it to honor the other culture.
Did you ever see the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
I have not. I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would appreciate it enough to watch it.
Oh my God! It would literally blow your mind. You would love it. It literally addresses this issue head on. That's the whole basis and the premise of the movie. And in the end, the grandfather says, because he's from Greece, and he doesn't want his daughter to marry an American guy. He doesn't like the American values and cultures and whatever. And in the end, the whole story was the families coming together. And even though they had different cultures, they were the same. Everybody's got a crazy uncle. Everybody's got hang-ups. Everybody's got, and in the end of the wedding, he says, I realized, the meaning of their last name was a fruit, and then the meaning of the white guy's last name was a fruit, and he tied it together, and he goes, in the end, we're all fruit.
Right.
And it was just fabulous. So it's one of my favorite movies. That's
awesome. So here's what I think of when you say that, and that's a beautiful story when two different cultures can find recognition with each other. It's something as silly as their last names are both fruits. That's amazing. You're not obligated to appreciate another culture. You don't have to like it. That's important too. For instance, okay, let's say it's okay. For instance, let's say there's a cannibal tribe, and they've been doing that for a long time. We're probably not going to do that. It's not where we're from. It's not what we do, and we may even find that awful. From a Western perspective. We're not. We don't have to appreciate that, but we don't have to go there either. We don't. In fact, it's probably a good idea not to go there because you might get eaten. So we're gonna stay away from that culture. We'll recognize them as people, and we'll say that's really weird, and we would prefer that you didn't do that, honestly. But you're not less than another person, regardless.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing horrible things, even if you're bad, gosh, even if you're terrible, even if you need to be put away for the safety of others, because those people exist too. They're just, I don't know what's going on. They probably don't know what's going on either. But somebody killed somebody, and it looks like they may do it again. We must at least put that person away so they can't keep doing that. That's bad. Okay?
Well,
that's bad. You got to put that. That doesn't mean that they're not a person, though. Okay? It doesn't mean they don't have all of the rights and obligations that every other person has. They may have done horrible things, but they're still people, and that needs to be recognized.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, this whole pandemic, it kind of pressed the issue of being humane in the prisons and all of that, that even though these were killers and whatnot, they had to recognize that being crammed in small quarters and passing the disease around that, was maybe not humane. And so there's a lot of discussions going on since then about being humane and all of that, and how do you maintain your values while you're also keeping people from harming other people. So yeah, I totally get that.
Right.
I totally get that.
And I mean, this does, in a sense, we can tie this back to, the idea that we wanted to talk about, narcissism. Is it getting worse?
Well, the way that I don't know. This is the part, and I don't, because what I said earlier about, psychologists are using this terminology, and I understand what they're doing, and I mean, it's a start, but narcissism is not a person, it's a behavior. It's a way of behaving. And what I don't like about titles is, it doesn't address the behavior, and the title gets blamed and not the behavior, and then the cycle just goes on. That's why I'm really passionate about the insecurity insecurity series that I'm doing on where these insecurities come from, how they're perpetuated in society, that breeds competition, that breeds comparing yourself to another person in any way, shape, or form, that suggests that another human being can actually tell another human being what they're worth. It promotes it. Somebody else can tell you if you're smart. Somebody else can tell you if you're pretty to this standard. And, those things are not real. But you look in our commercial ads and it's everywhere. Get this makeup and you'll look beautiful. Get this, lip job and you'll have better lips. Or do this and you'll be good enough. Get this job and you'll be good enough. Have this house. None of those things perpetuate happiness and inner peace, because it's all about always constantly working to win somebody's approval outside of yourself. So you're a slave. You're just always a slave. It's crazy. It's in everything, even in the spiritual communities. People say, I'm awoken, but then they'll say, I'm the knower of all knowing, I'm a guru. No, that is not true. That's why my podcast is called Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks, because every single person on this planet, including children, have wisdom. We can learn something from every individual we meet, because no two people have the same perspective. And this narcissistic vanity, self-interest way of behaving has been extremely harmful to society and the planet. Look at where we're at. Everybody's saying go back to work in the event of a pandemic. Really? That's what you got? Go back to work? When that's how the disease is getting spread, but we got to save the economy. Really? Well, what good is saving an economy when look at what's going on? The economy is not the problem. It's the way that we're operating amongst each other, with each other, the dark side of the ego. That's my theory is, narcissism is the dark side of the ego that wants to be right, that wants to be better than somebody. That wants to be able to measure other people and tell them what they're worth. In religion and politics, in the spiritual communities, people will say, well, you're a sheep. If you're calling somebody that's not, quote, awoken a sheep, you're a sheep. You now just missed the whole point, That is narcissism. You know, true freedom is allowing the individualism, like what Dave Grohl says, you know, there is only one you, and that is your power. But we're taught, you know, in school, I'm not as pretty as the cheerleader, or I'm not as physically inclined as the jock, or I'm not this, I'm not that. It's just constantly not enough, not enough, not enough. And people are constantly working to feel like they're good enough to someone else's standards. That's just never going to work. Not going to work. That makes any sense.
Oh,
I don't want to get on a long tirade here.
No, it does make sense, and you know, it really comes down to, I guess, the rise of individualism with its focus on the self and our inner feelings, and the decline in, I guess, what would be social norms that
exactly
kind of accompany that go along with. Mm-hmm. What we would consider to be like the modernization of society, but what happens with that is you lose community when the social fabric deteriorates, because everything is based on our profiles, right? We live in a world of profiles now. We don't, and what does that mean? You know, it's. We used to care about
false bravado.
Well, right. We used to care about authenticity, right? But we're spending time. I mean, I get, in a sense, you know, before the internet, to be authentic was to have the outside match the inside, right? To have your presentation go along with what you really feel, right? Like it's you. I'm authentic. These are my beliefs, good or bad, but I'm saying it, and this is what I believe, and it's authentic, whether you like it or not. It's real, okay? But with the rise of social media, instead, we're spending more time on what I would call second-order observations. We're trying to. It's kind of like this. The example is, back in the day at a concert, everyone's standing, sitting, their focus, their eyes, what they're seeing directly is the concert. You look at, like, for instance, any image of a big concert today, and everyone's recording it on their phone and actually looking at it on their phone. They're looking at the concert from a second degree of separation, right? We've removed ourselves entirely from the reality of the situation, even when we're right there. It's a problem because it fractures
avoidism.
It fractures society.
Form of avoidism. And
right.
Yes.
So by doing that, and okay, so then you take that footage of a concert that you were at, but really weren't looking at directly, and you upload that footage onto the internet. So now you have this third degree of observation happening from other people that's like, again, 2 degrees separated from the reality. That can be popular because because it's an opportunity to see the Foo Fighters in concert on your computer screen, and that's fantastic. That's really cool. It looks great. And having a prominent profile, like I'm the guy who put that up there, now my profile is very popular because everyone could see the concert on my page, for instance, right? So now I'm making an impact somehow. Personally, I feel like I'm making an impact now because I was at the show, 1, I recorded it, 2, I put it up, and now all these people think I'm cool for putting it up there, and I believe it. Now I believe it. It wasn't the case where I went to a concert and told some friends about it who didn't get to go, and they're just going to have to catch it the next time or whatever. Now it's in perpetuity. I'm the guy now who has access to this thing that you couldn't see other than through me. So I'm important now. Now I'm important. You know, and who's to tell me I'm wrong? You know, but I can't now. I can't relate to other people very well because I feel like I'm more important than them for doing this somehow. It's very silly, but it's also really dangerous because it does separate people from each other's humanity. You know, let's try. You know, I don't know what to say other than that, but the internet, social media, social media, and the way that we've come to live here is it's a whole new thing, and we, like I said, we're building our lives based on profiles, and we're all, I mean, not guilty of it, but yeah, we're all guilty of it. That's kind of the way things work now. If you're not online, where are you? You're nowhere. It's a little scary. I'm really kind of looking forward to removing myself from the online community as much as possible.
Oh yeah, here's the thing. It's a tool, and you can use it any way you choose. And for me personally, I totally get what you're saying. To address this, the first thing right out of the gate was what you said, which is so awesome. The false bravado aspect of profiles is a part that's narcissism right there. And then there's the part where I'm trying to see how I can say this.
No, sure, it's a complicated subject.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, I like what Keanu Reeves has of meme. He says, you're not suffering from anxiety and depression. You're struggling with the way things are. And that leads people to avoid. It leads them to do anything to distract themselves and not live in the moment and be in the moment because it's painful, because it's toxic and abusive at every turn. And, the internet can be used to help perpetuate that. But it also can be used to do the work that we're doing, to help people. You can reach more people. I have friends in freaking Zimbabwe.
Right.
I'm talking with people all over the world. That's a miracle and an amazing thing to be able to do that, where people are watching my podcast and going, oh, my God. And they're in India. And they're dealing with family abuse and issues where they don't have support.
Right.
So it really is. It's like money or any other tool. You can use it for good. It's not the money. Like the whole idea of money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. It's what people do with it. There's a lot of people that do amazing things with money, and it took me years to understand that. But yeah, so the false bravado part, comes into play in my mind of, the profile and to look the part. And you can be the keyboard warrior and hide behind the internet. And you know what I mean? That part is very toxic, but that could be done with anything, so it's not necessarily the internet. I feel personally, because I've met some of the most amazing people online that I would have met otherwise. So
no, I understand what you're saying. You can now certainly you can still be sincere and authentic and online, and not use your avatar as a different personality, which is also common. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but when you're, like, for instance, when you're on Facebook, when you're on Twitter, wherever you're at in your community online, it is almost guaranteed that you will say things that you would never say person to person. Guaranteed. You're a different person.
You got the safety.
right.
You don't
It's
have the
different
ramifications
behavior.
of someone punching you. Yeah, if you say something outlandish,
So what
you're
is
not
that?
in a room with people.
Right. So what does that mean, though? Like, when we think about it, that divide between behaviors that are permissible in your own mind online, which would never be allowed in person. It's kind of like the going to the friend's house. And your parents don't swear, right? But you go to your friend's house and it's just like they're fuck this, fuck that. They're cursing up a storm, and it's shocking for a minute. You're like, whoa, this is weird, because I do that as a teenager, but the parents they're doing it, and then the other kid goes to your house and he lets out a curse word, and your parents are shocked. That that's reality. But that seems like, if you put those two individuals online in that community online, the two families online, the behavior would change. It would be a little different, and you maybe the mom who never curses at home and doesn't allow her kids to do it is swearing up a storm online. What happened?
Okay.
Because it's a different personality, and there's safety there. So there's an amount of freedom online, as opposed to a certain amount of social repression in person. How do you reconcile those things?
Well, for me, I think it's a tremendous blessing. I think the internet's a tremendous blessing where it has revealed people's true character. Because they're safe to say things they would normally say in a room full of people, they're going to say it online, so you get to see what they really are like.
That is interesting.
How
True.
they really think.
Yeah, for sure.
And because they're not going to get their ass beat for saying something in a room with somebody that would do that, would be offended. And so, to me, I love it. To me, you can screenshot that and you can say, yeah, but you said this, now didn't you?
True.
I like it because you can call people out and say, no, you said this. This is what you typed and you put online, which is hate speech, which is racism, which is, toxicity, abusiveness, all of those things.
There certainly is that. It does provide an outlet for people to say what they really mean. And that can be a good thing. It certainly can.
It reveals character, the character of a person. You really get to see how they really think.
Right.
I've had a lot of friends that I've had to unfriend. I'm like, I will never stand by that. And that is abusive and wrong. But the thing is, they feel safe enough to say to air what they really think. People say, gosh, all the racism and da-da-da-da-da. Well, the internet has helped to reveal that. And that, to me, I'm very grateful for. It needs to be addressed. We really do need to get real about how bad the problem really is. And the internet has helped to reveal that truth. Right. And many others, because people are protected from the internet. So, and again, behaviors, we go back to that. And I get really frustrated when I see people saying the narcissist this, the narcissist that. I'm part of 4 narcissist recovery groups, and it's to us and them, and the title, blaming the title. No. Narcissism is a behavior. And until we address that truth, it's going to continue. And the internet has been extremely helpful in that way, because they type it, you see it, it's a behavior, it's hateful, it's abusive, and you can say, look, here it is. You don't get to hide behind anything. So
sure.
I like that part.
Right. And there's the dark manipulative side of that too, where people are just lying.
Right.
And then you find out later, but you're entrapped in what you thought was a certain kind of relationship that turned out to be something different. Now, that can be very harmful, too. So it does come out in the wash, but, don't get sucked in to a profile that you think is real necessarily.
Right.
The idea of mastering profile building, it might become a necessity more and more these days, but I think that we should not neglect what we're losing is the mastery of building relationships in person again. And because in those cases, the wait time to determine who this person really is can be much shorter because they're right there in front of you, and you see the behavior and you're hearing the words, and it's much easier to connect up reality with someone who's standing in front of you because they can't necessarily say a bunch of stuff that isn't true right there because
that part is like I like again because actually being in person people hide more because they don't have that protection. So I see it sort of the opposite. I see it like because they can hide behind the internet, they're going to be honest. They're going to say stuff they would not normally say. And to me, that has been huge. It has enabled me to discern a person's character very quickly.
Yeah, I think we're both right. I think we're both right in a sense. I think I have conflicting views a little bit on that stuff with you because there is the possibility of being able to lie much more effectively online than in person.
Oh yes, I'm not denying that at all.
And also in person though, it is much easier to perhaps hide some truths. But if you're the other one, then that kind of thing, not being forthcoming, is a big red flag too. Like you can spot that pretty quick if they're not kind of being honest with you, because we get all of the information in person. You know, you get the vocal tone, you get expressions and all of that stuff, body language, which has a huge impact. I mean, it's the body language and the way we move when we're interacting with people says so much more than maybe even the words do. I mean, that's been looked at a lot, and it's kind of been determined that how we say things and in person says so much, without having to hardly use any words at all. You can tell when someone's upset. Online, you can't. You can't.
Yes,
you can't.
yes,
they say they're happy and everything's cool, and you believe it. It's not. But it's not.
So here's the thing: you can read people online, and this is what we're learning. Like I said, I'm part of these 4 groups, and
it takes skill. It takes skill. I agree with you. It takes some skill.
The victims of abuse in these groups talk about, did you see the red flags in the beginning of the relationship? Always. You always do. But what you do is you go, nah, like my brother. My brother would be alive today if he listened to his intuition. So, these are people that have been, quote unquote, supposedly fooled by their abuser because the abuser will love bomb them in the beginning of the relationship.
Right.
But it's only just because they're not in tune with their intuition. They're not paying attention to their gut knowledge. And so, and so now what they're doing is they're going back out into the world and dating, and they're saying, I get this weird feeling about this person, so I act on that. And this person is right in front of them. And so it's not necessarily, you can read them online, you can read them in person. It's self-honesty that is the problem. That when we know something is off about a situation or a person and we don't listen, which is a huge factor in why we have so many problems. Can you imagine if we had a whole world where people trusted their intuition at all times and paid attention to it even?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Would be?
I know, but it's so hard because of the economic conditions people live in. It's hard because,
Right. Yes.
Everyone would love to be able to live really freely and openly and honestly without having to be concerned about survival. I'm an advocate of a bunch of free stuff. By the way, I think that housing is a right, food is a right, medical care is a right, education is a right. That we can, as a country, collectively, it's all our money. It's all of our resources together. We own it all. We all own it, right? We should be able to effectively pay ourselves, as a group, as a country. Let's pay ourselves back. Let's free ourselves from these restrictions of having to struggle for basic survival. That's absurd in this time,
Amen.
in this age.
Speak in my language.
It's ridiculous. If everyone's basic needs for food, shelter, medicine, clothing, that kind of stuff was taken care of, imagine the renaissance that would occur in art, culture, human relations, because nobody would be going hungry or not have a place to live.
Yet we have people that have trillions of dollars that are building a space program.
They don't, though. That's the other crazy thing. The billionaires aren't really billionaires. They're all.
I know what you're saying.
They're all in huge debt. All of them. They're living on their debt. It's not. It's an open secret now. The way they're doing this is so dumb. Is all of the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates guys, right? Elon Musk, the three horsemen of the apocalypse, whatever. They have very small salaries, right? Their income is very low. It's as low as it can possibly be. For a CEO, okay. Some of the CEOs take $1 a year incomes. I think Trump did that, or whatever. He donated his income, right, for being the president. Okay, so they keep their income super low, and they take loans out on the properties that they own. Right, and they live on the loan money, but they call the loan money part of their income, which is weird. They count that, right? But that's really debt, but they're counting it as their income because they have $1 billion loan. They're making $2 million a year in salary, okay, for being the CEO or whatever they do. The loan. It's like a 1%, 2% loan on their property, so it's almost free money. So what happens is when their taxes come through, the amount of debt they have far outweighs the amount of income they have. So they're not paying income tax because they're paying tax, or excuse me, they're paying the interest on their loans at 1% as opposed to whatever the tax rate would be if that was real income. So that's how they do it. They live on their loan money. They buy more properties with their loan money, get more loans on those new properties, and they just live on their debt, and then they die. That's it.
Well, that's our whole economy.
It is. That is the basis of our whole economy. Exactly.
Look what happened with Enron. That was a huge red flag of where we were headed. Then we had the 2008 loan debacle.
Right.
And what it is projections, number crunching, and they're not real. They would sell the loan and be making money off it at the same time. So it's I get what you're saying.
It's not real. It's just like the online world. It's not exactly real.
It's all
now
projection.
To go back a little bit to what you were saying about, because I said, oh no, social media is really terrible. It is if you buy into it. If you use it as a communication tool, there's nothing wrong with it, really. If you can avoid the distractions and just communicate directly with the people that you want to communicate with,
Yes.
no problem. It's just like picking up the telephone. Like there's, but that's not really how it works. You know, people do get drawn into all of the stuff. You know, we do have to end friendships because we find out the truth about their beliefs that they wouldn't disclose in person. So it's a mixed bag. I get it. Maybe we can learn how to do this better, hopefully.
Well, I did a video, a live video. Well, I did not a live video, but I did a video, and I talked about a situation that I'm in, have been in with my a family member that's been abusing me. Well, my family member is married to somebody that's been abusing me for years, and my family member has allowed it, so I finally took a stand. And I also cut ties with another family member that wouldn't support me, and I went live with that. Mm-hmm. I shared that, like, if this is happening to you, it's wrong. And that's why I like the internet, because I can reach people and tell them this is fucked up. Mm-hmm. And you do not owe your family anything. Not if it's giving them free rein to be abusive to you. This loyalty to family thing in society that is a complete falsehood. And so when you talk about authenticity, that's how you just be yourself. Say what you got to say, you know, like.
Sure.
And there's plenty of people that are doing this and showing other people how to do it. I'm seeing it more and more. People are encouraged, and they're starting to say, no, I don't want this job that makes me miserable just to survive. Or, no, I don't want to stay in this abusive situation with somebody that's not only harming me, but my children. And I mean, they're talking about real issues. So that part I really like. Now, as far as the fluff and all that, like you said, you can navigate your way around. I go, whatever. You know, I mean, not whatever, but
no, you can, but it's hard.
If I don't agree with them,
it can be difficult, especially when your friend, especially when it's someone you actually know, like in real life, like a real friend says something that strikes you in a certain way, and you get involved in the conversation, and then someone else comes in and says something outrageous or whatever the case is, and you're in it, you're there, you're doing it. And now you're wrapped up in that, and then you have choices to make about how to do it. You know, do you respond? Do you block the person? Do you ignore it? What do you do? These are the weird choices that we have today, right?
I have an answer for that.
Because think about before you answer, think about this. Like in real life, if you're having a conversation with somebody, and then this third party shows up, somehow knowing what you're talking about. and then gives his stuff, a point of view. That's pretty strange. So, like, that's not really how humans function in the real world. When two people are having a conversation, you don't get 10 other people jumping in on it. But on the internet, we certainly do. So, there are new skills involved, right?
Again, we're different on that.
It is fun. I mean, it can be great. It can be positive. I'm not saying it's positive or negative, depending on who's talking, but it's a new way of communicating that we're pretty new at, is what I'm saying. You know, we're not that skilled at that yet as a people. People don't know how to handle multiple incoming communications that seemingly come out of nowhere. It's tough. It's not an easy thing to do, and people get frustrated.
I think it really just depends on what you're talking about, for one thing. But
and certain people have different levels of skill at it too. They're better communicators or whatever, or they have enough self-possession to not allow negative things to really affect them that much, because they know that where it's coming from isn't a valid place, or they don't have enough information, or whatever the case. But not everyone can do that. So it does create this turmoil of confused, angry people all of the time. Even if you're not one of them, you still have to kind of wade through that environment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes back to what you were saying. You know, you have to choose who you want in your circle and who you don't. And that word, just take a brief little break that's kind of an offshoot of what we're talking about. The word negativity is, we just have a world that uses way too many titles, that blanket statements, things that don't allow for all the variations of situations that can occur under that umbrella. Like the word negativity. There's a different, negativity or toxicity.
Oh, sure.
They're different. You know what I mean? That word negative is used way too much and too broad of a way online, specifically, I feel. But I just I've enjoyed the online thing because, like, if somebody does say something that upsets you, because you're not right in front of them, you can take a 5-minute break and come back with a clear head.
That's also
true. And come back with a response that is grounded. If you feel like you got triggered by what they said. Then the other thing that I find has been extremely useful when you're communicating online is asking the questions. So much of this life is way more about the questions than the answers. If you don't know what the question is, you're arguing over this thing that doesn't ever get resolved. You need to put the question on the table. Like, for instance, today I'm following this wonderful writer. His name is Jeff Brown. I love him. He was talking about how people, what was his thing was like this, when people tell you chose your parents, this idea that you chose to be born with that you chose your parents before you were even born kind of idea.
Okay.
And he was talking about his disagreement about that. And this guy came on there and he goes, yes, it's absolutely true, and then he came back with the question, what if you were abused by your parents, sexually abused and passed around from other pedophiles outside of the family? And you're going to tell that person that they chose that?
Interesting.
You know,
right?
so
that really that makes you think, right? Immediately, the guy who said it, hey, you choose, that's got to make you pause.
And that's the thing, the question is so important. I'm learning. Like in my abuse recovery groups, I see these men talking about their situation. What do I do? And I just found myself asking the same question over and over. If you had a loved one that was in your position that you really cared about, what advice would you give them?
Right. That's it.
And the answer is, in whatever why aren't you doing that for your own self? I mean, you come on here and ask for everybody's advice, but in the end, you're the one that's living your life. You're the one that has to live with the consequences of your choices. And you're doubting yourself that you can make a good decision. That's the problem, but the question is, what I'm finding is really helping people get to the real deeper conversations.
Right.
Asking somebody those questions.
Right. And what you said last night when we were talking was, ultimately, kind of what we're talking about goes back to the idea of self-love. You have to appreciate the fact that, I have to is too much, but the idea of appreciating your own humanity and the place you exist in this world is very helpful, in establishing relationships with others. Like to know yourself enough and to love yourself enough to know that you're as good as anybody else.
Love that. What you just said, you just gave me the goosebumps. That is really the key to why I'm doing my work. This is the base of the work that I'm doing. Because if you're in a group like that or anywhere and you're asking people emphatically what to do, you're giving away your power and your belief that you know the answer your own self, which is the only person that can do it. The only person that can help you with your dilemma is yourself. You can listen to other people's perspectives and everything else, but when you're out there asking people, it's as if you're saying you don't trust your own wisdom. And if you don't trust your own wisdom, you're not going to be able to trust anybody else. If you can't trust yourself to protect yourself, love yourself, honor your boundaries, honor intuition and your own gut feelings, nobody else is going to be able to deliver that.
Right.
It's not possible.
Sure. And an important component to that is, because that can be extremely difficult in the world that we live in. Now, we have to make that clear that truly loving yourself can be a real challenge because of the other obligations for survival. So to make that a reality in the world more and more, the society itself has to support that new kind of individualism, I guess, where what we're saying is that, okay, all of us together, we're going to support everybody so that you actually have the opportunity to find out what loving yourself means. Because it's evasive. You know, you have people coming left and right telling you that you're wrong, in fact. So
well, here's how I cut to the chase with that. When anybody that tries to come at me, challenge me on that, nobody, absolutely nobody, has the right to tell you what you're worth, period. Nobody has that right. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a pastor, a president, a brother, sister, mother. Nope, nobody has that right. That's a fact. And that's the fact that's on the table across the board in the world right now. That's why there's so much upheaval in Cuba. People are realizing this. You know, when you go to look for a job, why is it I think I told you this, you know, you go to look for a job, and why is it that they're interviewing you and you're just lucky to get the job? Why is there not a conversation where you both come to the table, one brings value, the other one brings value, yet you're less than. Your time, your 8 hours a day is worth less. Why is that?
Right.
How come we're not allowed to say, hey, what's in it for me? Why is 8 hours of my time and energy worth less than yours?
Right. So I have a background
in
I have a background in staffing, and when I would interview people to potentially go put on assignments, and some of these assignments, there were interviews. Like, okay, there are three of you going on this interview. There's one job. So here's what I'm going to tell all of you is that how you want to go into this interview is with the idea of that you're expressing your skill and knowledge about the job at hand, but you're also doing an interview of the person you're talking to find out what they're all about, what their point of view of the company, and sometimes even like the financial stability of the company. Like, if I'm going to work for you, I want to know, not in a rude way, but I would like to know, because it does apply to me, if you're going to be around in 6 months. I don't know. How are you guys doing? Okay?
Right. And the other thing is, and the truth that's on the table, and I'm very triggered because I went through a lot on this particular, and just the idea that you couldn't have a successful company without the employees. So why are they treated like they're less than? Why are they treated like you're in a military outfit?
Yeah. Well, we certainly found that out this last year, how important employees are. I mean, that became very clear. It became very clear. And the idea that small business tyrants are mad because they can't get people to go work for their slave wages is kind of amusing. And it's like, dude, you better pick up a busing tray and get to work in your restaurant that you own. Maybe your business plan wasn't as good as you thought it was. Don't blame the workers who don't want to go back. It's on you, buddy. That's all you.
If we don't have a teamwork makes the dream work setup, a symbiotic setup, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to give up all my hours, energy, no benefits, and even then I don't even get hours, and provide everything for you and I get pennies?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm supposed to be okay with that, and I'm not allowed to question that. You know, I see so many people saying, you got to go back to work. Our parents worked their ass off. Call me weird, but I don't want that model. I don't want to work my ass off to barely survive, and by the time I'm in my 50s, I maybe have 10 years of
right,
quality
10, you know,
of
10
life.
good years left, and what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
You're going to rest.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what
Hopefully you
you're
don't
going
have
to do.
an ailment by then, you
Right.
know, that your
Right.
job created, all the stress and anxiety. And, like, if you're miserable at your job, like, honestly, it's like what's on the table is I'd rather live in my car. You know, and that's another thing. A lot of homeless people, that's why they're homeless. They're free.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's that. There is that. Yeah, for sure. Well,
They
look,
don't
when I
want
was
this
when I was out
stuff
there,
crap.
when I was out there, personally, I did it on purpose. I met a whole bunch of other people who were living outside on purpose with no necessarily barrier otherwise. Like many of us, and many have, said, okay, I'm done with this period of my life, and went and did something else. It was, there are other people who are outside for entirely different reasons. But every reason that you can think of, you can find that reason out on the street. Every reason, good, bad, indifferent, all of them. They're all like, it's just like a photocopy of humanity that's put on the street. Everyone exists out there. They're all out. Everyone's out there. All of your friends, all of the people that you know, all of your enemies, all of the weirdos, all of the saints. They're all out there. And the only difference is they don't have a roof over their head for whatever reason. We don't know. We don't know all the reasons. It's every reason. I'm telling you, it's every reason.
That's right.
So,
and the thing is, there's so many times you go and you interview these people, and they're profoundly wise.
Sure.
A lot of times they're talking about the real shit.
Yeah.
And this whole education system bullshit thing. Hey, memorizing facts and figures is not having smarts. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You got to know which way the wind blows. You got to be able to look around you and really see what's going on. What people are doing tells you who they are, their behavior,
right.
not their title.
Right.
And there's way too much hiding behind the titles.
There you go. See it back. Go right back to that profile idea. Hiding behind your avatar. So, yeah. I want to wrap it up. We've been talking a little over an hour, which I think is a good amount of time. So, the idea is, what can we do about all this, and how can we, as a people, lead a happy and purposeful life? There was a study on the idea of happiness conducted by a group at Harvard who followed a large group of people over a period of 75 years. And what they found out, unsurprisingly, was that fame and money were not the secrets to happiness. What they found out was that the most important thing in life and the greatest predictor of satisfaction was having a strong and supportive relationships, that the journey from immaturity to maturity is a movement from narcissism to connection. Because when you're 3 and 4 years old, that's my favorite age group, I think, really, for humans, like between 3 and 4, because you're a totally untamed wild human. No rules really apply yet. You haven't learned them. And so everything is just pure energy shooting out of the little dude. It's great. Because they're super honest and they're narcissistic as hell. Like, that's all they know. Me. It's all about me. And you grow and you grow and you learn and you have a family and you learn some rules and the way to behave, and you become connected. So maybe it's time to take a break, maybe it's time to take a break from your phone for a minute, shut down your computer for a minute and go out with your mask on and meet a friend. Meet a friend or two. Go and go outside. You're going to be fine. Hopefully you're vaccinated. And if you're not, that's cool too, I guess. But, better safe than sorry from my point of view. So go out and see somebody. And maybe you might feel better about yourself. That's it. That's my solution. Go meet people in the real world again after such a long time, being isolated from each other. And maybe that'll make a difference. Because we all got to get together somehow, That's the only way we're going to make any change. And I don't know if online's really going to cut it.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I would like to say, just my humble 2 cents, is
bring it home, Trisha.
the question, if you really want change in your life, anyone that's listening, ask yourself where your insecurities come from. Did that internal dialogue you got going on that's not so great, where did it come from? Why are you insecure about these various things? If you ask that question and you really want to find the answers, you will find the answers. Because once you address your insecurities, nobody can use them against you. You will be able to truly love yourself and realize that a lot of the voices in your head aren't even yours. There's something somebody told you when you were 4 years old. That's a lie. So that's my...
Right, exactly. That kind of ties into everything. The taming of the 4-year-old, right?
Yes.
So
taming their spirit, breaking their spirit.
So this is great. This is kind of, I feel like this is kind of like a nice cliffhanger, because what you left off with regarding examining your insecurities and where those come from, I think that would be a great jumping off point for our next conversation. Because
I'd love that.
Because I have some ideas about that kind of stuff too, and we'd go on for another hour at this point. But I don't want to overwhelm people. This is a new it's a new thing for my channel. It's a new perspective for me. Like I said, I had a profound realization last night. I really want to thank my podcast partner, Alexia Lindez, for pointing this out. That allowed me to have this realization.
Wonderful.
I want to, I'm going to shout out my Patreon, our Patreon, where people can help support what we do for as little as $2 a month to foster these kinds of conversations. It's patreon.com/Marcus Parrish. And Trisha, please let people know where they can find your stuff.
Absolutely, and I'd love to have you on my podcast. We'll talk about that after we get off. But thank you. It means a lot to me that you had me on your show, truly. I cannot say that enough. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart.
So
thank you.
Where can people go to see your podcast or your YouTube channel?
That's what you're asking me. It's called The School of Hard Knocks. I have a Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel. Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks, where people from all walks of life come on my podcast and tell their stories, their wisdom that they've learned from their life experiences.
Okay, cool. I'll put a link in the description so people can check you out too. And I would encourage more people who want to discuss this kind of thing to get in contact with Trisha or myself to have these. I think what are important conversations about society and the world we live in and how to navigate it. We'll probably get more deep as we go along, but I really am excited about this kind of new direction for what I'm doing. I'm very excited. So thank you so much, and we will talk soon.